Hey everyone, welcome back from your screening of Jump, Darling. My name is Keith Garcia. I'm the artistic director of the FilmCenter and founder of CinemaQ. Thank you for watching this entry in this festival this year, and very happy and honored to be joined after this film with two of the great talents behind it, and that is writer-director Phil Connel and star of Jump Darling, that is Thomas Duplessie. Hello, how are you two today?
Hi, I'm great, thanks.
Awesome, thanks. Very happy to be here.
So I guess let's start from the beginning. Phil, how did Jump Darling come to fruition? What was the first thought that came to write the screenplay?
Yeah, so the first thought probably was my grandmother. The role of Margaret in the film is very much inspired by my grandmother. And I think, I don't remember if I knew that I was going to write sort of an intergenerational tale, but I think it quickly became that I knew I was going to tell a story about that sort of relationship between a grandson and her grandmother, because she was such an important figure in my life. And family dramas were the films that got me into film, so it was a great kind of place for me to start.
That sounds like a really great, no pun intended, jumping off point for the film. And then how did the production come together?
Well, I mean, I started writing the script in, I think, 2013 or 13. And we shot the film in June 2019. So that gives you kind of an idea of, and now we're releasing the film in 2021, just to give you a sense of kind of the full length of the journey. So I guess it sort of depends on which part you're talking about. But if we're assuming kind of production, I think I started sort of searching out producers and really pitching it in the marketplace in probably 2017, got our seed financing in 2018, and then things really got rolling in early 2019.
Now, you said that your grandmother was a focal point for inspiration for Cloris Leachman's character in this film. How much of an inspiration does this take from your own life for the role of Russell, especially?
Right. So I mentioned earlier sort of the piece about my grandmother, but I think when I was writing the script, there were kind of two sort of themes that were really coming together, and one was end of life conversations on the side of my grandmother, and what I was going through at the time personally was just kind of recommitting to life as an artist, and trying to get a first feature made and thinking about what I wanted that to be, and coming up against kind of all the judgments and self-doubt and questions around making that choice, the value of that choice in the world. So I found myself writing a story about choosing life as an artist, but I wasn't interested in telling an autobiographical tale. And there were also themes of identity that were coming up through the telling of that story. And I just, drag was all, very much of interest for me as just a topic of exploration. I had a number of friends who were drag queens, and so I decided to kind of situate that kind of story about choosing life as a queer artist on the knife's edge of queer artistry, and make it about making a choice to be a queer drag queen. So I started interviewing drag queens and kind of moving the story in that direction.
And Thomas, how did you come into this project?
My agent sent it through as an audition, and I saw it, and within the first audition scenes and description of the character, it said that Russell's a Pisces, I'm a Pisces. It said his most recent ex Justin, my most recent ex was named Justin, gay out of work actor. I was like, check, I'm that too. Okay, awesome, this feels different. So I knew that I'd be fighting pretty hard for it.
And how about drag? What was your experience with drag prior to taking this role?
This is the first time I had ever done drag. it's the first time I've kind of choreographed my own material as well. But I mean, I've been living here in Toronto and going out to, the drag scene here for the last 12 years, and I have a few good friends who do it as well. So I was pretty well versed in the drag world, but certainly my first time trying it on.
Phil, you said that one of the most important aspects of this is obviously the conversation of end of life for folks. And how did you approach that, especially with Cloris Leachman? How did you bring her into the project? And obviously, none of us could have known that this would end up being her final film role. But was there an aspect of her particular age that really spoke to what you were aiming for with your conversation?
Right. So to the casting question, it was we knew we wanted to kind of, there was a long time goal to sort of see if we could cast a star in the role of Margaret. Just it felt like the role demanded it. It felt like we had a shot at it. So we did kind of go reach out to a bunch of sort of actors that were working over the age of 85, which is a pretty short list. And then on the Russell side, it was let's discover a star. So we did an open call in Canada. So that's kind of how we approached the casting, two totally different sides of it. And in terms of Cloris, I think, like I said, it was a pretty short list. And once we sort of honed in on Cloris, and also realized there were some practical things about Cloris that made they gave us a good chance, we thought, of her being interested in the part, which was that she was very indie friendly, consistently working, and potentially would take a risk on a first feature by a Canadian filmmaker in Canada. And I think, the age thing, I don't remember there being a moment where we're like, and she's 93, so isn't that perfect? She's kind of the oldest person we're talking to. That wasn't really part of it. But I will say that once we did cast her and she was on set, there was this sort of feeling, as soon as she arrived, that she was the absolute, she was the absolute right person to be doing this. And it was sort of this weird sort of magic feeling that, we were working with this, this decorated legendary star on this film, where she's, kind of has this very strong end of life kind of storyline. There was this sort of feeling, almost unspoken, that there was some, serendipity to all of that.
And Thomas, for you, as sort of the other side of this conversation with someone who's just sort of starting their life, especially as a character, and I imagine you too as an actor, what was the relationship like between you and Cloris, off screen and on?
Yeah, it was great. As soon as we met each other, I just felt like our chemistry really matched. There wasn't a lot of work to be done in terms of really trying to cultivate a grandmother-grandson relationship. She was so warm and loving towards me, and of course I was so overjoyed to be there with her. And so on set, she was such a pro. It was like, working opposite, the greatest actor I've ever had the opportunity to do so with. And then off scene, or off camera rather, she was she was a bit of a troublemaker. She was everything that you hear about Cloris Leachman. A little bit inappropriate, totally spontaneous. You never knew what was going to happen. I mean, we'd be having dinner and she'd be spitting corn at me from the other side of the table, or like swinging spaghetti in her mouth, or giving me the finger, or you name it. It was always fun.
That sounds like a really fun work environment to delve into some characters with.
Yeah.
What do you think, as Russell, your biggest challenges were approaching that role, and what the biggest benefits that you saw in playing Russell
Right.
slash Fishy,
Mhm.
as it were?
So aside from, I mean, the physical challenges of just the drag aspect of the character, I mean, a whole newfound respect for people who do, drag with the multiple layers of tights and the padding and the heels and the wig and et cetera, et cetera. But there was also, you know, Russell is going through a period of, his life where addiction is very present. I myself have never experienced what it was like to be semi-reliant on any sort of substance, but I know what it feels to be like trapped by something, or reliant on someone else for other things. And so it was really kind of trying to tap into that emotional sphere of his reality and kind of turnkey it um, into Russell's reality. So that was a bit of a challenge, but one that I was more than happy to grapple with. And to answer the second part of your question, I learned from doing so that it was another reminder that life is precious and you never know how long you have. And if there's anything that you want to be doing, if there's anything you need to be achieving, is to do it now. And having played Russell kind of gave me a bit of motivation, a little bit more freedom, and yeah, I guess I could say that that's probably what I took away from it.
Do you think you will find yourself testing more waters of drag in your non-professional acting life, or rolling it in? Did you get a little bit of the bug from trying it out?
I wouldn't pursue it on my own, but if say some place was screening this and they wanted me to show up and kind of do like a drag number or a bar one, whoever, I'd be more than happy to kind of step into the heels again. But I don't think I have it in me to just kind of like get all of that under my belt and go out and do it myself. So kudos to y'all.
As a Canadian production, it's always very interesting. I feel like Canadian films feel like they're taking place in Midwest America. I know that's just as an American, like when I'm identifying as scenery, etc. But how important was it to you to have this production be fully Canadian? And are you trying to tell a Canadian story in particular? Because sometimes people are just like, well, we're in Canada, but it doesn't have to be. But how important is you to represent Canada and your roots there in the making of this film?
Right. I think it was a bit of both. So I was very clear that I wanted to situate it in Prince Edward County, which is a place in Canada. If you were to look it up, that's where it would probably. I mean, maybe there's other Prince Edward counties, and again, that had to do with my relationship with my grandmother, and that I had always visited her in a small town, and so there was always a sort of a city versus country aspect to our relationship, and that happened to be a place that I've spent a lot of time because of her over the last kind of 20 years of my life. So I was very clear on wanting to bring that place to life on film because I felt like I could capture it. And similarly, I would say, the drag scene, my point of view on it was very much, a Toronto lens. It featured Toronto drag queens that I know personally and that I have seen perform right on the regular, on the strip in Toronto. So although we did sort of white label Toronto in the film, we don't talk about it as Toronto. It is sort of a city, but we don't specifically name it. So if you aren't looking at Prince Edward County and what's 2 hours away, then you might not know that. So I think those are those are what I wanted to do. But I think otherwise, no, I wasn't setting out to specifically tell in my mind, I wasn't specifically going for this, I need this to be a Canadian tale beyond what I've just told you, in the sense that like, it's going to be my point of view on the world. I'm a Canadian filmmaker, blah, blah, blah. But, and if you're paying attention, you see the Canadian money come out of the envelope in the breakfast scene. There's a few other nods to it, but I would say I wasn't shy. There was nothing that I didn't want to shy away from it, but it wasn't an agenda of mine. I don't know if I've answered the question, but.
Oh no, I thought that was perfect. Do you have a goal of staying within Canada as a filmmaker, or you feeling like testing the waters over here on across the border on the US side?
That's a very good question. Yes, I do, and yes, I do. So I would be very happy to work in the States. I'm actually a dual citizen. So my mom was American, and my grandmother, who inspired the character of Margaret, even though she was Canadian, lived most of her life in Vermont, in small town Vermont. There is a part of me that is American, and I'd be very happy to, to work in the States or have opportunities to do that. But I also imagine that, my Canadian identity and, my Canadian, point of view will probably always be a part of what I'm doing. So yeah, I think a bit of both.
There you go. Now that you've gotten to watch the film with an audience, congratulations on your Outfest debut. Is there anything you noticed about the screening that has changed a little bit about your message now watching other people enjoy it? Do you feel that that you've laid it out properly for folks? How was people's response to it as an audience?
I mean, the response has been great, and I think the thing that probably has been my single biggest takeaway, you can say what yours is just the how funny people find it. People seem to find it a lot funnier than, which I'm glad about, that the people are finding so much humor in it. That was a bit unexpected for me and nice. As far as, do I see anything differently? Oh yeah, every time you watch it, you continue to see all the things you wish you could do differently and you wish you could fix. But that's just the reality of, making things and putting it out there, seeing it, 100 times. But I feel good about, I sort of feel, I feel like the audience responses, we're hitting on, any one of the sort of 1 to 6 themes in it are coming up in the Q&As, and people are responding to different aspects of it. And, and we're getting a reaction, we're creating a conversation, and that's the best you can hope for.
Absolutely. And for each of you, what do you feel is the biggest takeaway you want the viewer to take from both your making of this film, but also your role in the film?
Yeah, I just hope people walk away from the movie feeling inspired and motivated. This is very much a film about choosing your own destiny, and I hope that encourages people to do so. I guess, yeah, and then just to leave feeling totally, full of joy and inspiration and wanting to try something new.
Yeah, I think similarly. I mean, I like I said before, I just hope that people have a reaction, if it's positive or negative, that they want to talk about it and provoke some kind of conversation. But it is, for me, about living life on your own terms and kind of facing down the constant judgments, whether that's from other people or from yourself, as you fight for the more difficult choice for yourself that in your heart that you want, but there's something holding you back. I hope that that's kind of the message, because we all need that, in our lives as we kind of fight for the things that we know in our heart that we want.
And on a lesser level, I really appreciate a rediscovery, perhaps, of Rough Trade's High School Confidential as a powerful drag anthem, performance anthem. It's really great to see that pop in.
Thank you. Yeah, another like Canadian icon, Carol Pope, like doing her, an iconic, queer song, way ahead of its time. That we are really proud of having it, and proud that she allowed us to have it in the film. So thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. What's next for both the film and also each of you in your work?
In my work, continuing to take the auditions as they come, crossing my fingers, and hoping for the next big project.
yeah, and for the film, I mean, it's been kind of a blessed time for the film. It's been an awkward, kind of clunky release in a way, because of the pandemic. And I'm sure a lot of filmmakers and, well, not, indie filmmakers and even, studio films are, having a really bumpy, rocky road to the marketplace right now. And so, but we're feeling quite blessed and positive. It's getting a really nice kind of festival sort of tour in the US now. And we're going to continue, I think, with that for a little while. We're hoping for a wide release kind of end of the year, early next year, but nothing to be announced yet. And similarly, that things are happening in Europe in a similar kind of fashion. As we continue to get momentum and additional sales and markets, we're just hoping that the film continues to make it into the consciousness, and we can leverage that for next projects. I've got kind of a couple film ideas and a series idea on the kind of docket, and once I can sort of free myself from this, I will be working really hard to do it all over again somehow.
Well, we're so excited that you were able to share this film with us, and can't wait for both of your next adventures on the big screen. And thank you for joining us. It's been an honor asking you some questions. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. And this course was writer-director Phil Connel and star Thomas Duplessie of the film Jump, Darling. Thank you for joining us, both of you. And we'll see you, viewer, at the next selection of CinemaQ. So thanks.
Thank you.